speech, but hopes the next video will focus on peace. I respect the artist's freedom of his own lyrics and the fans who support him, but I'm hopeful the next music video that uses our historic downtown as a backdrop will seek a more positive message. To which I would ask, what positive message do you want? Are we actually suggesting that in 2023 that it's impermissible to say that if you begin to commit illegal acts of violence in our communities and we push back on that violence and say no to it, that it's our fault? That we're doing something wrong? Maybe Eric or Luke or Carrie or Dolly will be the next to record a video in our small town, and they can highlight peace, love, and all the things that are great about Columbia, Tennessee. What about safety and security and the rule of law and the ability to walk down the sidewalk without fear that a Molotov cocktail is going to go screaming past your head, or that someone's going to break into your small business as you open one up on the town square? I've been to your town, Mr. Mayor, and it's a beautiful place. And I congratulate you on the success of Columbia, Tennessee, and much future success. I just have a hard time understanding what you don't understand about the concept of the rule of law, law and order, and the idea that if you bring that trash up here, we're going to push back on it. So now what the modern political left is telling us that there are two different sets of rules. Leftists, I've said for a long time, friends, leftists would be hypocrites if they thought that you were equal to them. They do not. You are beneath them, and you are treated with a different set of rules than they, whether it's freedom of expression, freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear. I mean, Hollywood elitists regularly tell us that it's wrong that you would want to keep and bear arms. Meanwhile, they have armed security doing it for them. Hypocrites? No, they can't be hypocrites because they don't see you as equals. To them, it's not hypocritical to suggest that their armed security gets to protect them, but you apes out there don't get to protect yourselves because that's what they look at you as. And I think I have a moment in time when all of this started becoming clear to me. Ferguson, Missouri. Anyone remember Ferguson, Missouri, and the significance of Ferguson? By the way, before I get into that, I should finish the pleasantries. Did I say episode 380? I don't know if I did. And our telephone numbers are back up and running, although I cannot see them on my screen. Mason has the ability to screen them, and then we'll work out our own little system. And you guys know how much I enjoy communicating on that level. At 615-737-9986. You can either hit us up on the super text line, or you can also hit us up on the phone lines, 615-737-9986. We're getting those things back up and running. A couple of guests to tell you about. Brink Fiddler will stop by at 2 o'clock. Actually, he'll be on the phone, but he's going to comment for us on what he believes the solution should be in elementary schools in Metro Nashville and Davidson County. I'm not letting go of this story. I think it's that important. It is ridiculous on its face that the head of the Metro Nashville school system and now the chief of police for the Metro Nashville Police Department are telling us that, no, we can't expect to have 70 SROs in our elementary schools. We could not. Money's not an obstacle because the state has now provided the funding, but we can't possibly be accepted to field all of those positions by June 30th of 2024. What? That's a year from now. You can't fill 70 positions in a year? In a year? When those positions pay somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 or $60,000, at least by my math. We'll talk to Brink about it in the 2 o'clock hour. And also, I think Steve Abramowitz is going to stop by to talk about some of this Columbia, Missouri, Jason Aldean music video stuff in the 1 o'clock hour. Ferguson, Missouri. Remember Ferguson? I do. Elephantine. Remember it like it was yesterday. Ferguson, Missouri burned to the ground based on a lie. A lie promoted and propagated by the mainstream media, by organizations like #NeverCNN, Garbage Network. When I started speaking about #NeverCNN, when I started calling CNN #NeverCNN, was in the aftermath of the Ferguson, Missouri riots. It is a shame that the media abdicated their responsibilities as news gathering organizations and decided to go all in a partisan fashion on one side of an issue without having all of the facts. In the case involving Michael Brown, we were told that a police officer, Officer Wilson, I think his name is Daryl Wilson. I might have his first name wrong, but I'm certain that his last name was Wilson. I mean, by now we know the backstory. We understand exactly what happened, and it is not in dispute. What happened is not in dispute. That Michael Brown walked into a convenience store and utilized his size and strength to commit a strong-arm robbery of the convenience store. He then left and walked into his neighborhood. A police officer responding wanted to question him. He bum rushed the police officer and then attempted to get Officer Wilson's gun, at which time Michael Brown was shot and killed. Hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot became a rallying cry of the political left because someone lied about Michael Brown putting his hands up in the air. We knew that that wasn't true pretty much from the beginning, but that did not stop the political left from lying about it because they had decided who the enemy was, and the enemy was the white police officer, not the guy that just robbed a convenience store. It began a moment in time that we still experience to this day, in which the police officers are never given the benefit of the doubt. Police officers are always guilty until proven innocent. And those that believe that police officers are the problem, those that would believe that we need to defund the police, they're regularly given wide latitude to burn and destroy. Burn off a little of those emotions. Break the law if you must. We understand the frustrations that obviously have built up here. We're told. We're told. But I don't think it happened with George Floyd, as many would point to, although that certainly reignited the flames that started in Ferguson, Missouri. And so the playing field has never been level. It's perfectly permissible, we are told, for individuals to protest and to allow those protests to break into riots. I remember it. I remember the CNN reporter standing in front of a camera on my television and telling me that the vast majority of the protests that were going on were peaceful in nature. Meantime, behind his left shoulder, a Walgreens pharmacy was burning to the ground. I find it curious that in 2023, we spend so much emotional energy over Jason Aldean's music video because he has the audacity to play on that music video things that actually happened in the United States of America. These are instances in which the same organization spending so much energy, emotional energy, on condemning Jason Aldean spent zero emotional energy condemning the people that were attempting to burn our city streets and our buildings to the ground. If any of you within politically leftist circles, if Hashtag never CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, and on we can go. New York Times, Washington Post, et al. If your organization spent any of this emotional energy on condemning those who would commit to violent assaults on our civilized society at the time that they were happening, maybe Jason Aldean would not have seen fit to using his creative license to come up with a song to announce to the rest of America, you know, the small towns of America still have a little backbone in them. I am regularly fascinated with the hypocrisy that goes on, but then I remind myself, as I try to remind you, they do not consider themselves hypocrites because they do not look at you as equals. You're lesser thans. And that's the way they've been treating us, at least since Ferguson, Missouri. They just decided to say the quiet part out loud, that if you are a leftist, you can riot. If you're a leftist, you can burn things. If you're a leftist, we will make every single excuse under the sun for you. In Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, and Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Ferguson, Missouri, and Baltimore, Maryland, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Nashville, Tennessee. Every excuse and no prosecutions. The sitting vice president of the United States of America was promoting raising money to get individuals who violated the law out of jail. Never to see a jail cell again. Yet Jason Aldean's the problem? Jason Aldean is inciting a riot? Meantime, leftists actually riot, actually threaten people with death, actually attempt to kill people, and they're given largely a pass by the mainstream media. Would you like examples? I have plenty of them. I'll start with one from some years ago, and I'll move to one that happened a couple of months ago right here in Nashville. So, example A, Alexandria, Virginia, a ball field in Alexandria, a ball field that I've had the ability to see with my own eyes. A man who was there by the name of Congressman Gary Palmer the day that an assailant opened fire on Republican lawmakers who were practicing for a baseball game. Gary Palmer was on the field that day. He could have been killed that day, easily killed that day. Steve Scalise almost was. And the media gave the typical response. Oh, this is awful. They went gun violence instead of people violence and decided that they wouldn't get into the political nature of the obvious political nature of the assault because it didn't behoove their narrative. These are Republicans, after all. It's completely understandable in their mind why some crazed lunatic would be really, really mad at Republicans. It was a 3-day story. 3-day story. Did you know that a local man by the name of Michael Patrick Leahy, who runs the Tennessee Star, which is a good online publication if you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to be familiar with it. Michael Patrick Leahy was threatened with death. Now, I've not gotten it's an occupational hazard to a certain degree that we receive these types of insane letters, but more often than not, you do not see them as specific as this one. And you don't hear anything about that. You don't hear anything about a publisher of an online journalistic publication like the Tennessee Star, who also hosts a radio show, was threatened with death by a political leftist over the Covenant Manifesto. The Covenant Manifesto, another example of a media cover-up when it's someone of the leftist political persuasion committing acts of violence against other people. Yet Jason Aldean's the problem. Remember that. Because he has the audacity to stand up and say, no, we're not going to put up with this. Your thoughts on it as well, 615-737-9986. We've got special session to talk about. We'll talk about the whistleblower testimony from yesterday. RFK was censored yet again by Democrats. That's on the way. And a manifesto update. It's all to come on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Okay, friends, efficient heating and cooling. They know it's hot outside. They know that AC's running. Is it running like it should? Are you getting it as cool as you want to in your house? If you are a, 72-degree guy or a 73-degree guy, or maybe you're a little less than that, maybe a 70-degree person, is it getting down to that temperature, or is your AC just running and running and running and running, never to achieve the temperature that you set it at? If that's the case, you need to get the thing fixed. You need maybe Jeff Eddy in your life, and efficient heating and cooling. Allow Jeff to come out, examine the issue, find out what's going on, and fix it right there. Maintenance calls, never over $125 on residences, no matter how many units you might have, 2, 3, 4, no matter. 125 is the cap. Oftentimes, that's a lot less than that. Also, Jeff never charges you overtime if you have a unit problem, because he doesn't believe that your AC understands what time it is, and he doesn't think you should be charged more just because it goes out at night. EfficientHVAC.net when it's time. Free financing on your next unit. Diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric, and an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient. Hey, the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project is an organization that I so believe in, and I'm so honored to be a part of telling you about them, or maybe reminding you about them as you consider where to give your charitable donations. And I know that we have limited charitable donation budgets. Well, I encourage you to investigate the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project and see what they do for our returning veterans. Their sole mission is to help reintegrate our service members, men and women, into society as seamlessly as possible, get them back off the battlefield and back into normal civilian life. And there's a lot of challenges, especially with our returning veterans nowadays. Why not go to the CharlieDanielsJourneyHomeProject.org? the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project.org to find out more information. There's photos there, there's videos. You can see the individuals that are helped and the many great organizations that the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project associates themselves with. And mark the calendar for September 13th. Their big fall event is coming up. Very, very excited to be a part of that as well. The Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project.org. Please give today. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:28. Thank you for being around. Matt Murphy and you until 3 o'clock this afternoon. The Drive with Brian Wilson at that time. Manifesto update coming up later on. RFK Jr. was censored at a censorship hearing on Capitol Hill, which is funny if you think about it long enough, and a whistleblower update. In the meantime, you're welcome to opine, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. That's the way to get in on us, either via super text or via phone lines. And there's a slight production element to what we're doing right now because I don't have an ability to see who's on the phone in my studio, but young Mason does. By the way, I failed to say hello to you today, Mason. Hello, Mason.
Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
Fair to partly cloudy. Yourself?
Around the same.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Got did you get a little rest?
A little bit, yeah. I actually was able to sleep last night. That was good.
That's nice. And tomorrow is another. Tomorrow, this is a big week.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
You're getting after it this week. Tomorrow it's the long haul. It's the marathon, right? On the old board.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as those calls come in, if Gary is still there, let's go to Gary on the first line, and we'll get to as many of these as we possibly can. Scott says, "Hey Matt, it's Thursday." Yes. Did I say it was Wednesday? Did I say it was Wednesday? I'm sorry if I said it was Wednesday. I don't know what the hell day it is. I'm sorry.
It's one of those days on the week.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the days on the calendar. Hello, Gary. How are you?
Hey, doing fine, Matt. Long-time listener. Great show that you have every day.
Thank you, man.
5 days a week, listen to you.
Yes, sir.
Talking about Jason Aldean. Really love his music. I'm a Black American here in Gallatin, Tennessee. Enjoy your show, but Jason Aldean hit it right on the nose. Everything you said was true. So kudos to him.
Well, God bless him for being willing to get out there, knowing what's going to come back after him, because his wife experienced it about a year or so ago, having the audacity to take a position on certain issues involving transgenderism, and she was lampooned and lambasted about it. And now he's doing the same thing. But I think he's speaking for a lot of people. I'm trying to get him on the show, Gary, to see if he'll come talk to us about his thoughts behind the music video itself. So maybe we can make that happen.
Yeah, that'd be great. Be great to listen to him. And I think more artists need to get out there and do the same thing. Let them know what real people think.
Well, and that's what he is. That's what he's doing. Thank you, Gary, for the call. He's speaking for the real folks right now, and I appreciate that so much as well. We'll get to more of your calls coming up in just a moment. The suggestion is now that Jason Aldean is, quote, inciting a riot, and despite the fact that there's no mention of race at all in the music video or in the music itself, he is being called a racist by people like Representative Justin Jones, who has an open invitation to appear on this radio show anytime he grows a pair. 1231, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is the IndyCar event that races through the streets of downtown Nashville. Do you know that by now? I hope you do. I'm excited because I get to go this year. This is the first year that I've been able to attend the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Could not be more excited. Come on out and be with me. 3-day tickets are available still. Premium hospitality still available, plus plenty of one-day tickets. Tickets are on sale right now. Pick your day, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Friday, you've got the Wesley Mortgage Freedom Fridays, where your veterans and first responders get in free, and that's a wonderful testimony to the veterans and the first responders and to Wesley Mortgage. Plus, Saturday, you've got incredible Saturday night racing, a family fun zones there, and then the big deal Sunday. Tons and tons of racing, capped off with the NTT IndyCar Series racing through the streets of Nashville. If you've never experienced open wheel racing before, now's the time. Jumping super trucks, now's the time. Tons of live, exciting racing and other entertainment, now's the time. Music, food, and fun, it's the party of the summer. Tickets are on sale right now. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Get amped at MusicCityGP.com. MusicCityGP.com. So your AC's having a problem, you get an AC repair person to come and check it out. If your car's having a problem, you take your car to a mechanic. What if your body was having a problem and you did not know about it yet? You know, oftentimes with some internal issues, once symptoms present themselves to you, and once you realize what's going on, oftentimes you're in the midst of it. You're in the thick of it. I'm not saying it's too late, but if you were able to catch this issue months and months beforehand, or years in some cases beforehand, wouldn't you want to? Well, that's what Craft Body Scan is all about. It's a CT scan right here in Nashville that can check out your entire body and see what's going on under the hood. And by checking under the hood of your body, you get a peace of mind, knowing you walk away with the knowledge of what's going on inside of your body, even as they find nothing, or maybe they'll see a little something that you catch so much earlier. Private health consultation starts your visit, then you're scanned on site. The actual scan is a very easy process. I've done it myself, 5 to 8 minutes. Images are then reviewed, and you get a full results and a full findings. 615-436-1000 to schedule an appointment today. And don't forget, $149 will get you and your spouse or your significant other in for a heart and lung scan. Together, do this together for $149 and get that peace of mind. CraftBodyScan.com, spell craft with a C. CraftBodyScan.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So I'm trying to understand the logic here, and you guys are helping me understand it, that Jason Aldean comes out with a song called Not in My Hometown, Not in My Town, and the music video reflects on the violence that occurred some years ago and how we're not going to allow that to happen in our hometowns. We're not going to allow that to happen where our children go to school, where we go to church, where we go to the grocery store, where we go to the ball field to watch the Little League games. We're not going to allow lawlessness to prevail. We just aren't. Well, in response to that, many on the political left are saying that Jason Aldean is inciting a riot. No, Jason Aldean is commenting on the riots that have already been committed by the political left. And their hypocrisy knows no bounds. In the meantime, you got leftists threatening death to Republican or conservative commentators. What say you, Bob? Bob is going to be next up on the Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Bob, thanks for calling.
Hey, Matt. I recall you mentioned Ferguson, Missouri. I recall a little girl named Jessica Chambers. I thought it was Alabama, maybe it was Mississippi, but about the time that the Ferguson event happened, this little girl Jessica was burned to death, and I remember nothing said about it by any of the media whatsoever. I'm just wondering, do you recall that? Are you familiar with it, Jessica Chambers?
Oh, her name. Yes, she was. It was not Alabama. I know that because I was in Alabama at the time, and I would remember if it was. It was Mississippi. And if I remember, wasn't she abducted? It was 2014, and I want to say she was abducted, and then she was set on fire.
Well, I don't know that she was abducted. I think she was out with her boyfriend, who
Maybe
later
so.
turned out to be he later turned out to be a black guy that I think was later convicted in Louisiana for another murder. But it was a horrible story, and I remember thinking at the time of Ferguson that you got all this news coverage of Ferguson, but you hear nothing about Jessica Chambers, and I followed it for a long time, but I finally lost track of it.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and Bob, it is. I do remember it, and it is a horrific case. And it is so horrific that it's difficult to discuss the details of the case, even on radio. But I do appreciate you giving us a call, Bob. If you don't recall, and I'll just try to be as delicate as I can during the lunchtime hour, it was December of 2014 where Jessica Chambers was 19 years old. She was set on fire in Cortland, Mississippi. She suffered from smoke inhalation and had been severely burned on almost her entire body. Even so, she managed to escape her captors, and she died the next day of her injuries. The man accused of killing her, his trial ended in a hung jury at one point. I don't know what ultimately happened to him. But yeah, it was just, it was horrific in its nature, and I appreciate you reminding us of that, Bob. Steve is next up. Steve, thanks for calling the Murphy Show, 1240 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's on your mind, Steve?
Sure, thanks, Matt. I appreciate you taking my call. I really love your show.
Yes, sir.
About 3 years, I live in a county, small rural county, probably about 80 or 90 miles from Nashville, and we used to have a regular countywide meeting periodically. And the sheriff, who was just a fine man, great sheriff, Christian man of integrity, was at these meetings regularly. And this was during the George Floyd period. And it come to his attention that someone was planning a rally or a meeting or a demonstration in our little county. And he made the announcement at this meeting. He said, I do not have enough deputies. If something like this happens and a mass of people, I'm telling you folks, I don't have enough deputies to cover this, to basically to ensure protection. But he had his cell phone in his hand. He said, but however, I will tell you, and this is a true story, I was there and I heard it. He said, I will tell you, I do have the power to deputize. So all of you men in this meeting, you keep your cell phones handy in case I need you in the next few days. And then somebody asked, I said, well, what if this crowd shows up and throws a brick through the courthouse window? And he said, I can tell you this. He said, they may throw one brick through our courthouse window. They won't throw a second brick through our courthouse window. And that is the kind of protection that we had in our small rural, some people, very poor counties, some people call it backwards, as they used to say in the old South or in the South. But that's the kind of protection that we have had and have. And it's a safe place because of that, and I'm very grateful to God that that's the kind of leadership that is in my community.
Well, I mean, I thank God that we still have communities that believe that way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with suggesting that if you bring violence to me, you're going to be met with resistance. There's nothing wrong with saying, and now we've created a dynamic, and thank you, Steve, for the call. We've created this dynamic where individuals threaten me with violence, or they incite riots themselves, or they engage in riotous behavior themselves. Look at, Look at Portland, Oregon, when they created the autonomous zone. What do they call it? CHOP or CHAZ or something or another like that? We're expected to allow these individuals. What did the Baltimore mayor say? Remember when there were riots in the streets there, and she said, well, you have to give them room to destroy. No, you don't have to give them room to destroy. You choose to give them room to destroy. And then Aldean comes out with a song. And let's see, who wrote the song? Kelly Lovelace, Neil Thrasher, Tully Kennedy, and Kurt Michael Allison are writers of the song. Good for them. And if any of you are listening, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you. And those that have either never heard the song or given it a cursory listen or simply have read or listened to reports about it have declared that it is racist in its nature. You've got it, right?
Yeah, I have the song pulled up
do.
if we'd want to.
Now, I'm going to read the lyrics first because I think it's more important. I think it's important that folks understand the lyrics to the song. Done by Jason Aldean. The music video reflects on a lot of the riots that happened on the part of the political left in the aftermath of the George Floyd death. And the lyrics are: sucker punch someone on a sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool? Well, act like a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag, and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough. Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town. Got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one day they're going to round up. Well, that bleep might fly in the city. Good luck. Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. The chorus runs again. Then it says, full of good old boys raised up right. If you're looking for a fight, try that in a small town. Try that in a small town. The chorus rolls again. Now, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? That someone has the audacity to say, we're not going to put up with that garbage here? He never makes mention of anyone's race. Not once. This isn't about race. Has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has everything to do with respect for law and order and understanding that standing in the street and protesting is, yes, a constitutionally guaranteed God-given right that we enjoy in the United States of America. That Congress shall make no law to prevent certain things that we should be allowed to do as free citizens, not subjects. But there is a difference between protest and a riot, protest and a destruction of private and public property, and everyone listening to me knows the difference. Everyone. In the meantime, and it's been well noted that any number of rappers have previously performed songs. Who was it that had the years ago? It was Cop Killer. Oh, well, that's just his artistic expression. That's his artistic license. Well, wait a minute. Don't you think he's inspiring people to do bad things to believe? No. He has a First Amendment right to freely express himself. And then there's CMT. It's their company, not mine. They're well within their rights as a company or an organization. I don't know what their bylaws are. I don't know how they set up their rules. But they're a private company, and they can do what they want to as a private company with regard to Jason Aldean's song. But I think I know how we're going to react to that. And in the meantime, the political left is giving Jason Aldean more free publicity than you can shake a stick at. Who was first, Anthony, or I think the other one was Susan, right?
Anthony and Mary.
Anthony and Mary.
Anthony's our first caller.
Anthony, thank you for calling in to the Matt Murphy Show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, Matt?
I'm well. Thank you for being here.
Yes, first of all, mainstream Nashville, CMA, Music Row. Yeah, they're garbage. Garbage. They've been woke. It's terrible. So I just have to tell you, when I first discovered that song, which is fairly recent in light of this whole situation, it reminded me of a town from back home where I'm from, which is the beautiful state of Idaho. A town we had up north called Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, during the George Floyd riots. Locals had received word that there was going to be some, what the media likes to call demonstrators coming to Coeur d'Alene to raise hell. And as we all, if you know anything about Antifa, their main headquarters is in Portland, Oregon, another garbage place. And one of the things that just, it warmed my heart, seeing that entire community, they all came together and they stood outside businesses, they walked the streets, because same thing there, smaller police department, like the gentleman earlier had called, smaller police department. And these people rallied together and they protected their city. And what just blows my mind is us as conservatives, Christians, we're bigots for wanting to stand up for ourselves. Like you said earlier, they're coming with violence and it's going to be met with resistance. And I never understood that. But
and sadly, there are many within the mainstream media. I would dare say the vast majority of individuals within mainstream media will dismiss the initial attacks as, peaceful protest or whatever it might be, and condemn those that choose to defend their property. I mean, look at Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And thanks for your call, Anthony. I think we lost you there. I mean, is there a better example of how the political left reacts? Kyle Rittenhouse was asked to help a property owner protect his property from property destruction. And according to the manner in which the leftist media reacted to this story, they seem to think that we have to shut up, sit down, and take it. And Jason Aldean has recorded a song that says, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're not going to take lawlessness. We're not going to take violence. There's nothing in the world wrong with saying it out loud. The leftists in the media wanted to bury Kyle Rittenhouse before he had his day in court for defending himself. Multiple people tried to kill him in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They tried to kill him. And because he defended himself, he also had to defend himself again in a court of law. Fascinating. It is 10 minutes until 1 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I love the way we're doing this, Mason. We're like old school. This is how they used to do NASCAR old school, right?
Yeah.
Pit now. He's holding me up signs telling me who's calling in. And I love it. And a lot of you all responding to the conversation. And we'll get to each of you on this Thursday edition of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm not saying that I just beat Dan Mandis, but I think I just beat Dan Mandis. Let's talk about it. The Glock Store, McGill's world-famous Glock Store, not only sells, and they have a wonderful retail establishment that I'll be seeing tomorrow. More on that in a moment. But they also have the training facility that you deserve, right? Shooting rooms, not shooting lanes, shooting rooms dedicated to help you understand how to use that gun that you just purchased in the real world. I'm going through my training as well, and I've laid down the Matt Murphy Challenge. Did this on my own time earlier in the week. I laid down a time of 9.5 seconds on a very easy course to understand. If you fashion yourself as a sharpshooter, I encourage you to go try to beat my time right now, today. You can do it today or wait until tomorrow when I'm there at the world-famous Glock Store. I'll be broadcasting on the drive tomorrow afternoon. Brian is out. out. And that means that I'll be at the Glock store from 3 until 7 o'clock. I invite you to stop by, go through your paces. For $20, you can shoot the course that I shot. 9.5 seconds is my time. That's a 1 second. I've got 1 second in total penalties. I had 4 quarter-second penalties. I shot it in 8.5 or thereabouts, and so my total was 9.5 seconds. I asked Dan Mandis if he shot a good. A lot of excuses. He said, "Well, I don't think I shot the same course as you." I said, "I think you did." He said, "Well, I'm really tired today." Okay. Well, I hope you're not tired. You could win swag, by the way. I think you win a cap and some other things, and you win the honor of saying you beat Murphy. Join me tomorrow, 3 to 7 at the world famous Glock store.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this, because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call. Go to paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. Kind of a nasty day. Man, oh man, some rain just popping middle to kind of east central Tennessee. Cookeville area and that. Man, oh man, just dumping and dumping and dumping, and a lot of flooding going on in Kentucky and some flooding going on in Tennessee. Be careful if you're out and about. Looks a little dark, a little shady out of our window here right at the rear end of Music Row, a shady thicket on the dead end side of Music Row. Your telephone calls coming in regarding Jason Aldean and his response video. I love this reaction from the LA Times. It's so expected. I could write these things myself. I'm like AI for the political liberal left, the leftist in the mainstream media.
The fun predictive text.
Oh, yeah, sure. In the video, directed by the singer's longtime collaborator, Sean Silva, Aldean and his band perform in front of the Murray County Courthouse in Columbia, Tennessee, as violent news footage, including scenes from what appear to be Black Lives Matter protests, is projected into the building. After premiering Friday, the video drew immediate criticism on social media for its embrace of vigilantism and for the conspicuous use of a location known to historians as the site of a lynching. Justin Jones, a man who has a standing invitation to appear on this radio show anytime he wants. Just grow a pair. As Tennessee lawmakers, we have an obligation to condemn Jason Aldean's heinous song calling for racist violence. You just make crap up. What we're saying is, you bring something here, we're going to defend ourselves. And there is nothing, do not apologize for saying as much. More in a moment. 1 more hour, 2 more hours to go. Stand by.
Still no word on where U.S. Army Private Travis King is being held in North Korea after he crossed the DMZ separating South and North Korea and was taken into custody. The White House says it's reached out through channels to find out more information, but North Korea so far hasn't responded. It raises tensions even further between the U.S. and North Korea, and the U.S. also deployed the USS Kentucky submarine at a South Korean port recently. ABC's Martha Raddatz got a first-hand look at the sub's capabilities, including housing nuclear warheads.
North Korea's Kim Jong-un says the presence of this submarine brings nuclear conflict closer to reality. Shortly after the sub arrived in South Korea, Kim Jong-un test-fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles. Tensions on the peninsula are already heightened in the wake of that U.S. soldier who willingly crossed over into North Korea.
In Washington, D.C., a grand jury is weighing evidence today related to the special counsel investigation into former President Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. ABC's Catherine Faulders is outside the courthouse and says Trump has already received a target letter in the January 6th attack investigation, and that could signal another possible indictment.
The timeline's unclear. We know that given that there's more witnesses, Trump is preparing for an indictment any day now. Whether that's in the next couple days, surely it can come as soon as any time, or next week. That's still to be determined.
No relief in sight from the triple-digit temperatures, with heat alerts posted coast to coast. Health officials urging residents in Arizona to stay inside. Phoenix hit a record high of 119 degrees yesterday. That dangerous heat also a threat in Europe. Thousands of residents in Greece forced to flee their homes outside Athens due to raging wildfires still burning. You're listening to ABC News.
The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is located in Franklin, but anywhere within the sound of my voice, it's worth the drive to the Dr. Gill Center. Let's talk about it for a moment. My name is Matt Murphy. You know me, and I've told you many times that I've had lower back pain for a significant portion of my 40s. But that back pain is lessened and almost unnoticeable on most days, thank you to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Now, I had upper neck issues that I thought were stress-related, but actually there was a compression in my upper neck that Dr. Wendy identified on our first meeting together. And in doing so, we set out a course of action, a plan for decompression therapy, and I don't have neck pain anymore. I don't have shoulder pain anymore. Thank you to Dr. Wendy and the rest of the team at the Dr. Gill Center. They've done the same for my lower back, and they can do the same for you. Back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain, any pain you're experiencing, you can alleviate it without the need for pills, and certainly without the consideration for surgery. That's what I tell you all about. Less than $50, a full consultation, examination, x-rays, and they will get you on the schedule for a plan of action that will lead to success. 615-882-4838. I've done it, and you should too. 615-882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. Back after it, Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for being around. 105 to be precise, just past the lunchtime hour. We'll have Brink Fiddler with us at the right around 2 o'clock, 2:05. Brink is, of course, the owner of Defend Systems. He is a good friend, and he is an expert in all things physical security consultation. We'll talk to him about the decision on the part of the Metro Nashville Police Department to support an effort by Adrian Battle not to allow or not to have SROs in our elementary schools and what excuses could be made there. We'll do that at 2:05 this afternoon. Talking with you primarily in the first hour about Jason Aldean and some of the leftist response to his very forward song saying, look, you're not going to get away, not in my hometown, it says, to speak to this matter. We'll get back to your calls momentarily, so hang in there if you're calling or holding on. But I wanted to speak with my good buddy Steve Abramowitz from the Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast. He's on the line with us to talk about this song and the left reaction to it. Steve, always good to catch up with you. How are you, man?
I am good. How are you, Brother Murphy?
I am well. I'm a little, I feel a little silly talking about this because I feel like the vast majority of the people listening understand it, but it needs to be highlighted over and over again that the political left believes that they can riot with impunity and nothing should be done about it or very little should be done about it. But if somebody like Jason Aldean uses his artistic expression to say, look, you don't bring that to a small town or you're going to get a response, and suddenly he's a racist pariah.
It's a joke. I haven't been this angry about something in the culture doing this, making a target out of an artist or a celebrity in a long time. But this one kind of struck home because, A, I'm sick of it. I think you are too. I think your listeners probably are too. But B, that song, if you've heard it, it's literally a Second Amendment right to self-defense song. It could have been the Kyle Rittenhouse theme song, right? It could have been any movie we saw in the 70s and 80s where the Pale Rider rides into town and protects the citizens, the unarmed citizens, the defenseless citizens from the bad guys. Okay, we just happen to live through this BLM thing, call it Antifa if you want, doesn't matter, billions of dollars of damage. Jason's song is awesome. Jason, if you're listening to me, if you're a friend of Matt, if you're a friend of my show, please come on. I want to talk about this. I want to talk to your wife, Brittany. She just went through this about a year ago. Same thing. The mob comes for you when they see an opportunity. Justin Jones is no different, buddy. It angers me because from Disney on down, they just look for these little opportunities to say, pounce. And that's an inalienable right of self-defense. Stand your ground, the right to carry, the right to own a gun, you name it. That's the Second Amendment. And Jason's song isn't all that provocative. Go listen to 99.9% of the rap songs out there. That's provocative. That's kill cops. That's criminality. That's you name it. It just makes me mad. And then what the Columbia mayor said, where he filmed this, that's even just more salt in the wound. Very disturbing.
Well, and I know our afternoon host, Brian Wilson, had Mulder on his show yesterday afternoon discussing some of this matter. And Mulder seems, I don't know, upset that he said that he hoped that the next music video promoted peace and not violence, to which I say, this does not promote violence. It is an anti-violence song.
Exactly. That's why he probably, didn't listen to it. One of his interns said, hey, here's an opportunity to make some headlines. I don't know if he's up for re-election or not. He does live close by in Columbia, where I am in Franklin, but I don't know his politics.
I think he just got re-elected last year, but anyway.
Okay, so he's doing what they all do. He's grabbing onto a headline, no different than Jones, grabbing the tiger by the tail and saying, look at me, look at me. What's Jones's end game? Does he want a defenseless small town so that when the mob comes that he led a couple years ago, they will just roll right over the citizens and take advantage like you might see in Ukraine, for goodness sakes? It makes me so angry when I see these grandstanders, is what I call it, pandering is what I call it, to, I don't know, low information voters thinking that they have the solution to crime, which is out of control in Memphis and rising in Nashville, sadly, and a guy like Jason, who's a country boy. Now, the whole point here, by the way, is CMT yanked his video down. That's how it got the oxygen in the room. Nobody would have even heard of it. They would have just said, oh, another country song, wonderful. But because they did that, it's the Streisand effect. I'm sure you've heard of that. She tried to hide her house from paparazzi. They all said, what do you have to hide? So 1,000 more eyeballs were on it when she tried to hide something. I don't even know what it was. Yep. But with Jason, he's number one on iTunes. The video's number one. And CMT, owned by Warner Brothers, which we can get into the big mega entertainment companies being the problem here, helped him, not unlike last year when his publicist dropped him because of what his wife had said on Twitter, and they almost went out of business, and he went on to great fame and glory because he is a gold mine for anybody. Jason, if you're listening, I'll represent you for free. Anyway, it just makes me so mad. Jason's great, and the gun grabbers and the progressive left mob that wants to cancel everybody for their freedom of speech are a bunch of demons, and they should be all put in their place. And I'm kind of tired of it because it's the same playbook over and over and over again.
Well, anytime that anybody who has a spine says no, I mean, one of my favorite modern sayings that my buddies started using a few years ago, and I'll sanitize it for the listening audience, Steve, is screw around and find out. Right, and that's
what the song is about. That's
what the song's about. Is that look? You know what? If you want to jump, just jump, and we'll see what happens. I'm not going to start anything, but I will finish something. Is the basic concept of the song, and I believe now more than ever we need more men and women, but more men willing to stand up and say no. You're not going to do that here. I'm reminded of, while you were talking, Steve, I was reminded of Daniel Penny. If you don't remember, Daniel Penny was the 24-year-old veteran who got on a subway train in New York City and saw this guy messing around, threatening people, talking about he's willing to die and he's willing to kill and all of this. And finally, Daniel Penny said no, and he put the guy in a chokehold. He didn't try to kill him, but that guy was on some sort of drug. We'll find out exactly what he was on. But because of that, and because of the necessity to get this individual under control, the man died. Sadly, I don't want him dead, but he died. And now he's been
put him in a recovery position because he was a trained soldier who knew how to do that. But the guy did die, like the guy they put in the back of the police car who killed himself by bashing his head and neck against the walls. You know, there's a really good story about a small town called Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, right next door to Spokane, Washington, where I come from. And they had an Antifa rally coming their way. And so the good old boys got in the street with their shotguns and whatever they wanted, their right to conceal carry, and they said, no, you will not. And guess what? It didn't happen. That's the story of this video. That's the American way. That's John Wayne and Gary Cooper. For them to say, oh, Jason's a racist. The song's not about, hey, let's go into the town next door, let's call it Memphis, and put on hoods and kill everybody. Not at all. It's saying don't come here with your mob mentality, break our city hall, burn our storefronts like they have to board up in San Francisco and Manhattan because we will not let you. That is called self-defense, and I love it.
All right, hold on for just a second because I want to ask you about the CMT Warner Brothers connection in just a moment. But before we do that, you're telling me I was just being told about Mason. We got a little weather alert. We got nasty weather coming in from the north toward Nashville, and that's caused a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings, correct?
Yes, I got severe thunderstorm warnings for Sumner, Wilson, Davidson, Trousdale, Rutherford, and Smith counties until about 2:30 this afternoon. So just keep an eye out on the roads as you guys are driving. Be careful where you're at. It says to stay inside as a recommendation, just to stay out of the winds and everything that should be coming through.
Yeah, it's just that typical system that we've seen come through over the last several days, and it's going generally west to east, but it's got a little southerly. It's slipping to the south as it drifts from west to east. So, right now it's along the line Dixon, cross to like Bellevue, Nashville, Hendersonville just got popped, and it's headed toward Mount Juliet in Lebanon right now. So just be on the alert for that. Steve Abramowitz is with us. He is with the mcview.us is the great website, and he's got a great podcast page. Steve, what is the influence that Warner Brothers is presenting here in your mind? Because I feel like this is coming from the top down. Some brass decided. Jason Aldean is an incredibly popular country music star. I have a hard time believing the rank and file at CMT made the decision to pull this video.
It's a long story, and you're right, because CMT probably knows who their audience is. So what's happening is Time Warner, just like Disney, just like a lot of other what we call legacy media, are dying. They have run out of worlds to conquer. So you got a Time Warner that owns HBO, which owns Discovery, which is trying to unwind all of that mess because it's totally expensive. You've got the new guy at CEO, the new return CEO at Disney, saying we want to get rid of possibly ABC because it's a loser. Nobody's really interested in their news. That's not how they get the news. They listen to you. They thankfully listen to my podcast. There's a whole new world there. HBO just had a new movie. I think it's HBO. If I'm disparaging them, I'm sorry. But basically a man in bed with a young girl, 9-year-old girl, and they try to have intercourse. That is the kind of garbage that they're pushing out there, as opposed to Jason Aldean's Americana country roots song, which CMT would normally run with. They would love that. Grand Ole Opry, country radio, that's what it's all about. That's George Jones. That's George Strait. But instead, somebody like a Kathleen Kennedy, who's worth $250 million, combined with her husband, Frank Marshall, who's been around since the E.T. days, that's where they met, are making everything woke. And so they want to ruin every single franchise. And so as Nashville becomes Hollywood East, I didn't coin that phrase, that's what they want to say it, that's no different than country music, which in my humble opinion is the last stand, the last bastion, aside from talk radio, which they're after as well. They just tried and failed at going after AM radio, to wokeify, anti-family eye, mob eyes, all of this stuff. And DEI, in my opinion, stands for Disney, Eisner, Iger. Those three are the mega monolith entertainment monopolies that don't care about making money. They've just had 9 huge blockbuster losses in a row, including Indiana Jones. How do you screw that up, Matt? Come on, that's like taking a John Wayne movie.
Well, I can tell you how you screwed up. I can tell you how you screwed up for me, Steve. And that creepy CGI or whatever they're doing with his face. But anyway.
Well, that too, but he is geriatric. But Kathleen Kennedy is responsible for that. She took the Indiana Jones legacy and ruined it. She took the Willow, beautiful little franchise, ruined it. She took Star Wars, ruined it. The only people who don't, her and her husband are the number 2 producing revenue generating couple in the history of Hollywood. The only one better is Kevin Feige, who's got Marvel. She's going after that one too. So her record will be a lot of money made, but man, we destroyed a lot of what's good about America.
Well, we were talking about
trying to do with Jason Aldean.
Well, and I know it's a little off subject, but you bring it up. We were discussing the other day this release of a couple of still shots of the proposed Snow White remake, and
Barbie.
And what a missed opportunity. Look, if you want to create a PG-13 or an R-rated Barbie, whatever. I mean, that's to each their own. But what a missed opportunity to bring mamas and daughters together, right? I mean, it would seem to me that you would want to, if
that
you do.
would be family values.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, we can't have that, right?
They're against it. They're against Jason and his wife. They're against you and me and our families. I mean, look at Sound of Freedom. Going to make $100 million. They didn't expect it to make a penny. That's what the audience wants. They want a story that's realistic and accurate and tells you a tale that shouldn't be told anywhere else. You won't hear about it on the evening news. Versus Barbie, where they have the characters bashing Barbies against The Rock, saying, "We're not mamas," as if it was like a trans-Tifa type of rally. That's not what kids want to see with their moms. So that's going to be a bomb. Probably make some money, but it's going to be a bomb. And that's the legacy of the Kathleen Turner types. They've all five of them that we mentioned have fired their DEI presidents and chair people. I could go down the list. I have it right here. And this all started with a comedy called Bros that made $5 million in the whole North American theater opening weekend. I think your radio station makes that in an hour. So the point is that they keep doing this ideological stuff at the expense of the business stuff because they've gotten so fat and happy with Walt Disney's legacy that makes billions of dollars. They're willing to sacrifice future dollars just to make the point that they're woke. And that, as we saw with Target and Bud Light, I talked to John Rich, and he said they sold 0 cans of Bud Light at his store on Broadway. And what happens? In comes Garth Brooks, who says, "Oh, well, I can do it." And nope, his investors bail. They just don't learn the lesson. They're either bad business people or they've got an agenda. And between you and me, agendas just don't sell, at least not that one, to 4 or 5%.
No, that's not how that is not how consumers make their buying decisions. I was talking with someone who has a pretty a deep vested interest in the Bud Light brand. They utilize them as an advertiser for what they do. And I won't divulge any more than that. But they were asking me, they said, well, this will pass, right? I mean, give it a little time. And I told them, and I'm curious your thoughts, Steve, and that we've only got about a minute or so left. But I told them, I said, I don't think the brand Bud Light can survive. I think you have to rebrand it. If they somehow woke up to their madness and they hired Steve and Matt Murphy to try to help them, I tell them, you have to blow up the brand Bud Light and rebrand it as something different at this stage.
Yep, I'd sell it to Yingling and let them use the distribution, because what they did was, just like Jason CMT, just like Disney with Kathleen Kennedy, they sold themselves to Ambev, which is a European distillery out of Brussels, and they decided either A, to compete with their own brand, they needed to squash the number one brand, which was Bud Light, which is weird, right? That's cannibalism, going after your own brand, a lot like Barbie bashing her own doll against The Rock. But those decisions were made by woke European, ideologically interested, not bottom line consumers. And I do think the backlash was a lot bigger than they said, but no, I don't think Bud Light will ever be the number one brand. I think it's fallen out of the top 10. It went from number 1 to like number 11 or 12.
14, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Because of what they did. Well, somebody in the marketing department should have said ahead of time in the boardroom, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. I know they love Clydesdales and I know they love, the beer, but I don't think they like this. But yet, there they go. But, you got to call it as it is. This happened with the hockey. This happened with the MLB. This happened with the Major League Baseball and NBA and NFL. All these massive billion-dollar institutions, for some reason, drank the Kool-Aid and think this is the right thing to do. It's not.
Nope. Steve Abramowitz is with Mill Creek View. I encourage you to go to mcview.us to find out more about what they're doing over there, what they're doing on the podcast. Who's the latest up on the podcast, Steve?
I'm having a guy named Mr. Hand, who I think you're familiar with, coming up here pretty soon. We're talking right now. But today is going to be Battle of Franklin Trust Executive Director and Tanya Esquibel, who's running for council up there, and I think Sumner.
Well, you do a great job of blending art and culture and entertainment and sports and, of course, politics. You talk a lot of politics, and I appreciate what you guys do over there. I get to talk about you all the time. Steve, it's good to talk with you, and we'll do it again very soon. Take care.
We got to get you back on. Bye-bye.
All right, man. Yeah, there's Steve Abramowitz, mcview.us is the website. A lot of weather going on around us, and a lot of you are chiming in to me on the super text line about what you're seeing. Power outages all across Mount Juliet right now. Lebanon experiencing some of that. So we're going to shift our attention to some of the weather that's going on in just a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Here's the wonderful thing about how Jeremy and Nashville Painting Company do their jobs, right? Because obviously when it's raining, when it's pouring outside, you can't work outside and do an exterior job in paint because it, wouldn't work. Well, that's when they shift to the interior work that they do so well at Nashville Painting Company. Matt Murphy here for Nashville Painting Company. Friends, it's as simple as this. If you have interior work to be done, if you have an exterior job that you need done, if you've noticed chipping or fading, whatever the situation, you need to call the best. And the best does not have to be the most expensive. Nashville Painting Company is testimony to that very fact. Jeremy will not be the most expensive, but he is simply the best. He's got certified and qualified crews, licensed, bonded, and insured, locally owned. So they're the folks you see at the grocery store, you see at the ball game, and they want to be able to look you in the eye and say, that was a pretty good paint job, wasn't it? And you'll say, yes, it was. NashvillePaintingCompany.com. That's NashvillePaintingCompany.com. 615-635-0350. 615-635-0350 for Nashville Painting Company. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Nasty, nasty weather happening right now all throughout our community. I'll try to catch you up to date with that in the next couple of minutes. And we'll get back to the issue of Al Davis. I mean, that's dominated the conversation. I've got whistleblower talk to get into. There's a bombshell memo that we'll talk about that Hunter Biden was hired by a Ukrainian firm to, quote, protect it from the corruption probe. That from Just the News. We knew that. Joe Biden bragged about it years ago, but it merits a revisit. But right now, our focus is on the weather. There's power outages going on throughout our listening area, to include Mount Juliet. Matter of fact, my wife just informed me that our power's out, and our power never goes out. So these are thunderstorms that are just, they're popping up and moving through. We've seen this happen over the last couple of days. Dixon's getting popped right now. Right now, if you're on 40 just west of town, like Kingston Springs, Pegram, White Bluff, you're getting popped right now. Nashville, you got rain, but it's nothing significant per the radar. And this system is broken up just a little bit and moved a little further east. So right now, Lebanon is just getting pounded. And east of Lebanon, what is that? I mean, if you know these places, well, it's along, what is that? That's not 109, is it? I think this is east of 109. One way there, yeah, Lebanon, east of 231. Oh, Lord. Is that look? Well, I won't say what that looks like, but there's a green dot in the middle of a bunch of red, which frightens me because that indicates rotation. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything because I don't know enough to say anything, but I'm saying I look at that radar and that you see that right there? That freaks you out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a little.
That's kind of freaky.
Yeah.
Because that indicates that there's no wind speed in that dot, but there is a lot of wind speed going on around it, which is that's a frightening thing. So there's a lot of this going on in Kentucky as well, and we're just going to have to deal with it while this system moves through. And to the east of us, out Knoxville way and in Cookeville and all that, they've been just getting pounded all day with more rain. And I suppose the last thing that we need is a little more rain, but more rain we shall get. So just batten down the hatches. If you're in a place where you don't have to go anywhere for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours, probably want to do that. And just know we'll try to keep you up to date as we get information either from MTE or NES as to power outages. I know Mac Morey's back in the newsroom, and he'll be covering this situation all afternoon. What do you got, Mac?
Right now, 8,500, a little over 8,500 people, NES customers without power.
Well, there you have it. So if you are one of those, just keep it right here on Super Talk 99.7 WT, and it's 1:30. Good afternoon. All right, friends, Matt Murphy for Nashville Safe House. And I have a special message from Mark at the Safe House. Mark tells me that he just got two truckloads, I said truckloads, of Browning safes delivered yesterday. And he's wanting me to tell you about them today. So now you can shop all of the brand new Browning safes and take advantage of the discounts and the rebates that I've been telling you about. It'll get you up to $1,000 off your Browning safe from the Safe House. And you heard that correctly as well. Now, we're all saddened that the state of Tennessee decided not to extend the sales tax-free nature of gun safes in the state. Well, maybe we'll repair that next legislative session. I'll do everything in my power to do it because I think it's a good thing for you to buy a gun safe, and Mark does too. And he wants to make them as inexpensive as possible, and he's doing his best. Maybe the state's not doing their part, but Mark's doing his best by keeping them in stock, by giving you discounts on. He's got a few scratch and dent over there that you can get incredible savings on. Plus, now these rebates from Browning have never been better. 2 brand new truckloads of Browning safes delivered yesterday. All the shopping that you want to do is right there at the Safe House. Go to NashvilleSafeHouse.com for more information or stop by 4th Avenue South, downtown Nashville. It's Nashville Safe House. We talk about wokeness a lot. We've been talking about wokeness quite a bit today, what with the Jason Aldean song and the cancellation on CMT. If you're just about sick and tired of the woke companies that you have to do business with, I have an answer for you when it comes to your mobile company. Mobile companies are no different than many of these other companies. For years, they've been dumping millions of dollars into leftist causes. It's sad, but true. And if you've decided that you want to try to dedicate yourself to spend money with organizations that believe the way that you do, I have an answer, and it's Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is the only Christian conservative wireless provider offering dependable nationwide coverage on all three major networks without all of the woke nonsense. You get the best possible service in your area without the woke politics. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you send a message that you support certain things that they support, like free speech, religious freedom, the sanctity of life, the Second Amendment, and our military veterans and first responders. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team is ready to make switching easy for you. Keep your number, keep your phone, but switch to Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/Murphy, patriotmobile.com/Murphy, or 878-PATRIOT. 878-PATRIOT. Use the offer code MURPHY. That's Murphy. All right, I'm just going to tell you to tell me what their name is, and then we go from there. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy and you. 136, nasty weather moving through, batten down those hatches, as I mentioned last segment, and we'll get through this together. There's really been no reporting. Thank you very much. There's been, oh, wait, hold on. Let me say it again. Oh, Mary's been holding. There's no report that I've seen, and I know Mac Morey is keeping his ear on it in the newsroom over there, and we've got our weather folks from our television partnership. They're keeping their eyeballs on it as well. But there is there's been no suggestion that any of these storms are tornadic in nature. And I don't want anyone to think that that's what I was suggesting last hour. Our last segment, I just saw the radar, and the way the radar looked, it looked like there was an area of circulation. I don't know because I'm not trained to know. All I can do is report what those who are saying about this. And they're saying it's severe thunderstorm, but it is not tornadic in nature. But we'll let you know if anything on that front changes. 137, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I was just looking, and I'm getting back to your calls. Mary, you'll be first. I just want to read, so I read you some of the lyrics of Try That in a Small Town. And, so the first verse is kind of reflecting on crap that people are doing in these bigger towns. Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool. Well, act like a fool if you like, cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag, light it up. And then the chorus is try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Round here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town. And I was reminded, because I fashion myself as something of an old school country music aficionado. Now, I'm probably not nearly as good as many of you who have lived in Music City all your lives. But this song reminded me of something. And maybe we can pull it up in a little bit and play it. But it reminded me of these lyrics. Released in 1970. I hear people talking bad about the way we have to live here in this country. Harping on the wars we fight and griping about the way things ought to be. I don't mind them switching sides and standing up for things that they believe in, but when they're running down my country, man, they're walking on the fighting side of me. Walking on the fighting side of me, running down our way of life our fighting men have fought and died to keep. If you don't love it, leave it. Let this song I'm singing be a warning. When you're running down my country, man, you're walking on the fighting side of me. Would Merle be canceled by CMT nowadays? I mean, he did give him a warning. He's talking about walking on the fighting side of me. And yes, I love the second verse where he talks about that squirrely guy who claims he don't believe in fighting. And I wonder just how long the rest of us can count on being free. They love our milk and honey, but they preach about some other way of living. And Merle was prophetic. Great song. Mary, you are next on this subject on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thanks for your patience, Mary. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's Sarah, but that's okay.
Oh, well, my sincerest apologies.
That's fine. That people get confused with my New York accent. But I just want to point one thing out. When the song Girl Crush came out with Little Big Town, people went nuts. Radios didn't want to play it because they thought it was a lesbian song. And it wasn't. It was about a woman that envies this other girl that's dated the man of her dreams. Then, when I get there where I'm going, that song had the thing about suicide and everything with Dolly Parton and Brad Paisley. They all went nuts. Nobody wanted to play it. But they ended up playing it, and it was a big hit. Jason Aldean's song, I was working on LinkedIn, and I see it all over. People are going crazy. So I looked at the video. There's nothing wrong with the song. He's just saying, hello, if you come to a little town, we're not going to put up with this because we are a community. And at the end of the video, they even have a farmer where he's, we're here to help you. And this is America, and we have freedom of speech. So people are allowed to sing and say what they want. The radio, because I've done entertainment in the country music, the radio people for hip-hop and R&B had to go to the performers, the hip-hop performers, and tell them, you can't use the F word, you have to stop beating up on women and referring to them as whore, but nobody went crazy. This is ridiculous. It's a big nothing. It's a big issue about nothing. He has the right. I think it was a great song, just like I like Girl Crush and When I Get Where I'm Going. And I don't feel that CMT really, I've done business with them. I think they just lost their minds like Disney.
Well, and one of the reasons, and Sarah, what a great call, and thank you for it, and please do call again. One of the big reasons why the Hollywood elites and the New York elites and the Washington, D.C. elitists, these leftist politicians and leftist media organizations can be as dismissive as they are of the message that Jason Aldean is bringing in the song is they are equally dismissive of small towns. They believe anyone living in a small town is a hick, and they're only there because they don't have the means to get out. I talk to people in New York City. I talk to people in Washington, D.C. You speak to these media elitists, these snobs that work for the CBSs or the MSNBCs or the #NeverCNNs of the world, and they think we're all rubes. We're knuckle dragging, barefooted, outhouse using rubes. They don't know that Columbia is a well-used location for things like music videos. They don't know that the courthouse has been the scene of numerous film locations, or rather, films have shot there. I think I read earlier today that part of Hannah Montana, the movie, was shot there. Was Hannah Montana promoting lynching? I mean, you are this nonsense. I mean, if you've not heard the liberal argument, well, that courthouse was the scene of a lynching in 1927, and that's why he put it in the video. I mean, shut up. Just shut. What do you want? You want to blow up the courthouse because bad things happened there in 1927? And oh, by the way, Jason Aldean had nothing with picking the shot. He had nothing to do with picking the courthouse. They don't get the racism that they so desperately want on the political left, so they've started making it up. And they could not, and I say that properly, by the way, it's one of my pet peeves. If you could care less, that means you care. I could not care less about what they think of small towns. And they don't care about your small town. One of the reasons that they don't understand the song. They don't understand what it's like to have your neighbor's back. Look, if you've been to some of these bigger towns, and many of you I'm certain have, one of the appealing parts of living in Nashville is that you get some of both. Nashville is a big city. There's almost, 2 million people in the metro Nashville area. But I go 30 minutes in any direction, and I feel like I'm in the country again. And I can find places like Columbia or Spring Hill or Pegram or Gallatin, Goodlettsville, and I could go on. That's why we like living here. The elitists that run media corporations and conglomerates in the United States of America would just as soon that middle America doesn't exist. And they would like to deny their dependence on us. And I think one of the more flummoxing aspects of the Bud Light controversy for them is, who are all these people that have decided not to drink Bud Light? They're the people that you just spit on. They're the people that you just spit on. And you depend on them, whether you want to or not. All right, just tell me which way we're going, and I'll go that way. Is it Johnny? Is that right? Johnny, I hope I have your name correct. How are you, sir? Hey, Johnny.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, I'm just passing through town, headed from Florida to Indiana, and my wife's from the Spring Hill, Tennessee area, so I want to call in and comment on this Jason Aldean thing. Everybody just needs to do what they did on the Budweiser thing and keep your dollar away from them. Turn DMT off, and that's the only way you can fight them. I quit drinking Bud Light because of that crap, and people were giving me crap about it at work, and I said, I have one thing they want. That's my money. And you take that away from them, they're upset about it. But they really don't care about us. And I like that you mentioned the Merle Haggard song. What about Charlie Daniels' Simple Man? What people used to call me, and I'm proud of that, to be called a redneck and a simple man. People just have to stand up for what's right.
Well, I think of another song called Simple Man by Leonard Skinner, too. There you go. That's a pretty good one as well. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. And, man, I'm so glad you called, Johnny, and I appreciate the thoughts. You're dead on, in my opinion, and I appreciate you. Oh, you know what? I absentmindedly hit the drop. Did it drop? No, you dropped it.
Yeah, put it
I
back
don't know.
on.
I was wondering if this actually worked. It was just the screen that was out. Who knows?
Startle you?
Yeah, it scared me. Oh, did that work? And
buttons.
No, buttons scare me, no doubt. All right, one or two more. We move on in the third hour of the show to a few other things, to include update on the manifesto, where now the Metro Nashville Police Department says they don't have a problem with the release of a redacted manifesto. Meantime, leftists are actually attempting to kill people who are conservatives. We'll tell you more about that. Let's see, Pat. I think Pat has been holding the longest. Pat, good afternoon. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for calling in.
I think it's real ironic that Sheryl Crow has spoken out about this song, considering I grew up in the Boot Hill of Missouri, same place where Sheryl Crow grew up. In fact, my husband lived next door to the Crows. And I can assure you, people that still live in Kennett, Missouri, do not share Sheryl Crow's beliefs. She's just gotten a little too big for her britches and forgot where she came from.
Well, the funny thing about what she said, and I have her quote up here, where it says that there's nothing small town or American about promoting violence. And my response would be pretty simple to Sheryl Crow. Tell me what in the lyrics of Try That in a Small Town is promoting violence. What we are promoting is a sense of law and order, and the fact that if violence is inflicted upon us, that we are willing to defend ourselves.
Exactly. Well, and her father was an attorney, and I'm sure he defended a lot of people that were probably guilty.
Did you, what town was it that you guys grew up in?
Kennett, Missouri.
Were you there around the same time as Sheryl, or?
I grew up in Campbell, which is about 20 minutes from Kennett. My husband grew up in Kennett, and like I said, he lived next door. In fact, he dated Sheryl Crow's sister. So I just think it's so funny that now she's this big celebrity and thinks that anybody really gives two craps about her opinion.
Well, Sheryl Crow is as entitled as the next person to offer her opinion, and we're as entitled as the next person to dismiss it as a Hollywood elitist who has lost touch with the realities of what people go through on a regular basis in small towns and in big cities. Sheryl Crow has not had to fear violence for a long, long time in her life. But I know a lot of people that are fearful of Nashville, for example, because of the crime and the homelessness and some of the violence that comes with some of those things. So thank you for your call. I appreciate you so much. That's pretty cool. Kill it, is, she said, the small town. The complete quote by Sheryl Crow: Jason Aldean, I'm from a small town. Even people in small towns are sick of violence. There's nothing small town or American about promoting violence. You should know that better than anyone, having survived a mass shooting. This is not American or small town-like. It's just lame. Well, Sheryl, I know you're around. You're welcome to come on the show, and we can have a great and gracious conversation about this subject matter. I don't see anything in the song itself that promotes violence in any way. But suggesting that we will defend ourselves, well, that's okay, right? It's okay to defend yourself, right? Or should we not talk? We can allow people to talk about initiating violence on us. That's permissible. But when we say, hey, we're going to stand up for ourselves and defend ourselves, somehow that's taking it a step too far. Once again, my entire argument is that all of you on the political left that's got your panties in a big old bunch about this, just shut up. I mean, you come off as children. We're going to defend ourselves. We're not going to allow that garbage to go on in our American cities. Nor should we, at least in our small towns. It's 152 on Super Talk. How about this? I got on the scale yesterday. I had a weekly visit with my PhD weight loss consultant, Rachel. And so I try not to get on the scale every day because Rachel has advised me not to do that. She said, sometimes it'll drive you crazy. Because, fluctuations and water and whatnot. She said, once a week, that's good because we're not focused on the outcome. We're focused on the process. We're focused on incomes creating outcomes. That means whatever I'm intaking in my body is going to create a positive outcome with regard to the weight that I want to lose because I set myself a goal and I'm not going to be off that goal. Well, I am proud to say in less than 5 weeks, I have lost 22.5 pounds. I'm so excited. 22.5 pounds. I can feel the difference. People have commented on the difference. I feel a little more energetic, believe it or not. And you could be the next person on PhD weight loss, doctor and dietitian developed and individually delivered. And they say that because it's true. They consult with you. They talk with you about your habits, about your likes, your dislikes. They tailor a plan specific for what you're trying to accomplish in terms of your weight loss goals. And oh, by the way, speaking of goals, they're going to set that goal up in consultation with you. And if you do not get within 5 pounds of your target weight by the end of your program, PhD will continue to coach you for free until you do. It is the PhD guarantee. Go to myphdweightloss.com. 22.5 pounds in just over a month. You could be the next success story. myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies, and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this, because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call. Go to paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pleased you've joined us. Thank you so much for spending time. Whatever time you give us, we're appreciative, whether it's 5 minutes or the full 3 hours. We spoke with Alice Rowley yesterday on the show. Heidi Campbell has reached out, and we'll have Heidi on pretty soon here. I think she wanted to come on tomorrow, but tomorrow I'm on from 3 to 7, and we're out at the Glock store. Heidi will be invited to the Glock store. I don't know if she'll choose to come. Maybe that's not where she would want to conduct the. I don't know. I don't know what her position would be there. But I do invite you to join us. We're out of our normal time slot. The one and only Des Dickerson will be here to sub in for us from noon until 3. And then I'll be in for Brian Wilson from 3 until 7. And we are broadcasting live and on location. I always like that. Live and on location, as opposed to broadcasting dead and on location. That's at McGill's World Famous Glock Store tomorrow from 3 until 7. But another hour to go until we make our way to our Friday edition. I find it the height of irony that Democrats invited a hearing on censorship and the First Amendment. Now, this was a GOP-led House panel created for the purpose of focusing on the weaponization of the federal government. Well, Democrats tried to stop testimony from Democrat presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., citing his comments about COVID-19 and minorities. The committee's top Democrat, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, attempted to limit his testimony before it started by arguing the time clock showed he'd been given 10 minutes and it was twice as long for usual witnesses. And then they began to scream and yell about all aspects of his potential testimony. So at a testimony about censorship, they tried to censor him. These individuals know no irony. Back in a moment with Brink Fiddler.
2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, thunderstorm warnings in McVinmille, Sparta, and Smithville for the next 15 minutes. Hail, strong winds, very heavy rain being experienced in this storm right now. Right now, east of Nashville and now east of Rutherford County as it just popped there. And with that, flooding as it continue thing to watch here in Middle Tennessee. Flash flood warning in effect until 4 p.m. And looking at power outages, over 8,000 NES customers without power right now. Looking at the state here on poweroutage.us, over 45,000 people without power in the state of Tennessee. Davidson County, 2,300. Wilson County, over 3,000 people without power. Looking at Cheatham County, 100 people. Sumner, 6,500 people without power. And Robertson County, 2,300 people without power. Looking at Montgomery, still having power outages there as well, over 3,000 with no lights. Complete forecast, a few minutes away. Russia pulling out of its grain deal in Ukraine, prompting renewed fears for the global food system. Here's Anastela Katera.
Russia bombarding Ukrainian ports, ruining up to 60,000 tons of grain and damaging storage infrastructure, while simultaneously pulling out of the so-called Black Sea Grain Initiative, which aimed to guarantee safe passage to ships carrying grain exports from Ukraine across the Black Sea. Russian President Putin accusing the West of using the agreement as political blackmail, while Russia's defense ministry declared any ships traveling to Ukrainian ports would be deemed possible carriers of military equipment. Grain prices have already risen.
An active investigation in Tennessee. Channel 4 reports that a teenager in Madison is dead after a shooting last night. Police responded to that shooting at the Berkeley Hills apartment complex to find 18-year-old Luis Arita Vasquez lying near a picnic table with a gunshot injury to the head. Officials are now looking for suspects. And UFO hearings. If the truth's out there, then a bipartisan House committee wants to find it. Dave Packer.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers on the House Oversight Committee looking into UFOs say they're just looking for straight answers. Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz.
When we ask these questions, if the answers are there are no unidentified aerial phenomenon, then say that. But that's not what the answers are. The answers are we can't tell you. And so that leads to speculation.
Tennessee Republican Congressman Tim Burchett.
We're going to have witnesses who can speak frankly to the public about their experiences.
Including a former Navy pilot who says these aerial encounters are putting pilots at risk.
And right now in Middle Tennessee, a mental evaluation has been ordered for the mom accused of strangling her 11-year-old son to death. 32-year-old Patricia Sylvester is also accused of strangling her youngest son, who's 4 years old, but he survived. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Friends, I had a great conversation with Stokes Nielsen some months ago, and Stokes related to me that he had written a song. The song was performed recently at Arlington National Cemetery, and now Stokes is looking for someone like you or maybe someone you know with that great singing voice that can bring greatness to the recording of this song. That's why it's called Channel Greatness, because he wants to bring out your greatness with his song to celebrate the Women's Military Memorial in Arlington National Cemetery. The song was a part of the 75th anniversary of the Women's Armed Services Integration Act and a part of the Women's Veterans Recognition Day. Now, we want to record the thing, and Stokes wants you. All you have to do is write this email down. Email Stokes. If you're a great singer or you believe you are, you want the next opportunity to be the next star in Nashville, Tennessee. He wants to talk with you because they're choosing one singer from Tennessee, one singer from the metro region, and maybe it will be you. Go to strengthofamericasong@gmail.com and email Stokes. That's strengthofamericasong@gmail.com to find out if you've got what it takes to record this fabulous song from Stokes Nielsen. It is the Channel Greatness Project. Strengthofamericasong@gmail.com. Here we are. Here we go. Hour number 3, Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7, WTN. As always, so much to get into in the final hour. The Biden administration is now officially blocking funds to the Wuhan Institute. Yeah, the Wuhan Institute of Virology was, in fact, getting funding from the American government, despite the fact that Anthony Fauci tried to claim that it wasn't happening. It most certainly was. It was suspended in the aftermath of COVID, and now they finally decided that we're not going to do that anymore. Imagine that. They told us they weren't doing it at all, and now they've decided they're not going to do it anymore. Isn't that interesting? In the meantime, we've got a slight update in the effort on the part of some to see the manifesto provided. I mean, that's what it's so called. The writings of an obviously mentally disturbed individual who is now deceased, who is responsible for the Covenant School shooting. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is fighting any release of the Covenant Killer Manifesto in federal court. But an official with the Metro Nashville Police Department says the local law enforcement agency would not object to a redacted release of some of the documents. The problem would be, how do you define those redactions? In a declaration filed earlier in the month with the U.S. District Court for Middle Tennessee, the FBI argued it cannot release any documents from the manifesto, citing an ongoing, quote, criminal procedure, whatever that means. Matter of fact, going further, Michael J. Cedille, Section Chief for the FBI Record Information Dissemination Section Information Management Division. That is an actual title. I'm going to read it again. Baby giggle. It sounds like something you would make up. How do I pronounce this name, Mason? I don't know why I think you would know. It's Michale. Is that Michael or Mikhail? I'm going to go Mikhail.
That might be more right, because I've never seen Michael spelled that way in my life.
Nor me. Mikhail Cedille is the section chief for the FBI's Record Information Dissemination Section Information Management Division.
Sounds like a title that a child would pretend to make up while playing like cops and robbers or something.
Well, this person, who is section chief of the FBI Record Information Dissemination Section Information Management Division, say that 3 times fast, says release of any information could reasonably be expected to interfere with the pending criminal law enforcement proceedings. What? What proceedings? As well as potential enforcement proceedings such as spin-off investigations and or prosecutions that may result from the investigations. In other words, we don't want to release it. There's not really an investigation going on, but we'll just say that there is because we don't want to release it. Not necessarily to talk about these matters, but to talk about more broadly safety in our school systems. I've invited, and frankly, I haven't talked to him in a while. He's our man from Defense Systems. Brink Fidler joins us on the road to talk about the matter of elementary schools and SROs. What is up, Brink Fidler? How are you, friend?
Unfortunately, I'm currently part of Mac Maury's news story being trapped on the Cumberland Plateau in this horrific rainstorm. So prior to that, besides that, I'm great. How are you?
How's it going over there? Can you give us an on-the-scene report? Is it raining? And is it raining like, I don't know, a cow peeing on a flat rock?
It was. It's starting to let up now. I don't think I want to talk about it, though, because we're going to start monsooning again. But it's been that way ever since I left town. So it's been pretty miserable driving thus far, but neither here nor there. How are you?
I'm doing well. Is T. Menthol with you?
No, she's otherwise disposed.
Okay, back at home base. All right. Well, very good. I wanted to say hello to her. Were she with you? Well, be safe first and foremost. And if you've got to go for whatever reason, just let us know. I don't want to take you away from eyes on the road. But, you know, I thought of you, Brink, as I try to understand the thought processes behind Adrian Battle and the Metro Nashville school system deciding that they're not going to accept certain amounts of money from the state government. And Police Chief John Drake kind of had the back of the school system to a certain degree earlier this week when he said, no, you know, we'll take some of the money for middle school and high school, but we're not going there when it comes to elementary schools. And this was the baffling thing for me. He said, we don't know that we can staff it, and we don't have but until June 30th of 2024 to staff it. And so we'd have to give the money back if we don't get it staffed. And I'm sitting here thinking, so we're not even going to try? So I just want to ask you, away from the political nature of some of this, do you believe that SROs are effective preventative measures with regard to school safety?
They certainly can be. Not always is the short answer. I mean, we've had several school shootings that did have SROs. The shooter knew they had an SRO and didn't care. But can it be? Well, certainly. I mean, we know if it's even effective at preventing one, then it's obviously worth it. But I can probably shed a little bit of light on a little bit more around what Chief Drake said, and I don't want to speak for him or the department, but you know, I'm still pretty plugged in with the department, and I can tell you that they're having a heck of a time even finding officers, like to fulfill the current vacancies they have, which is a ton. The process to identify potential officers takes a long time because the amount of the extensive background check that has to be done prior to them even entering the academy. So because they can't even really get enough personnel currently to fill the vacancies they have, being able to add more and put SROs in those elementary schools by next June would be a really heavy lift. To be honest with you, I don't even know that it would be possible, and I think that's the way they're probably looking at it. I don't know that they have said that, but that is probably what they're looking at. Because if you think about a police department's job, you know, their first job is patrol, right? Before anything else, before SROs, before K-9, before aviation, you have to fill patrol and calls for service. That's number one. And so I think that's probably where they're focused. Not that elementary schools don't need SROs, and I don't think they feel that way at all. I think just, you know, the ability to fulfill it is probably what's standing in their way.
It left me with the feeling, and I'm not asking you necessarily to defend it. You're just trying to give us a rationale behind why the police chief would take the position that he has, and I appreciate that. But my response to that would be, so we're not even going to try? It's not worthy of trying? Because what I would hate, Brink, and I don't mean to be too emotionally charged when I say this, but I did say it yesterday, that, I mean, I would hate for something to happen and someone to ask John Drake if he feel like he did everything in his power to protect elementary school kids. When he has the money, it's not a monetary consideration. So I just wonder, it felt to me like maybe he understood the political powers that be were not interested in engaging this arena in elementary schools. And because he already has staffing issues, it's a natural place for him to be to say, look, I'm trying to fill my staffing issues, so this is just a lift that is too heavy, even given the 12-month time frame to do it?
Yeah, maybe. And I know historically, and I haven't heard Adrian Battle say this, but I know in the past few years, Metro schools has not wanted Metro police officers in their elementary schools, which, and some of the middle and upper school principals decided, during all the, riots and all that, BLM stuff, that they decided they didn't want them in their schools either. And they actually, the chief pulled them out because, some of them literally had the officers, they specifically told one in particular that they didn't want them to be seen at all, period, the entire day unless they were called for, and literally had them go sit in an office where nobody could see them. So, we already have a morale issue in law enforcement, and you do something like that. Who's going to want to be in that school if the staff or the administration is treating you like crap? So I think I'm guessing on a lot of this, but based on what I do know, I'm guessing that a lot of that has gone into that. At the end of the day, I wish we could just put it all aside because it's about these kids, right? Like, these kids need somebody to protect them, and they don't have that, and it's unfortunate.
Is there, if I asked you, what other things should parents and educators be focused on in their school systems? What other aspects of child safety we should be concerned with? The SRO conversation has been front and center, especially in Metro Nashville, because of the absence of SROs at elementary schools naturally. But I am certain that you are aware of other things that we should be keen on in terms of making sure that our kids are as safe as possible. Anything come to mind?
Oh, certainly. Forced entry protection on your glass is a big one. We, as you know, Mac, you attended that one experiment we did, or testing process we did. We like to test those products, but any building, any quote unquote secure building, your glass entryways are going to be your weak point, and there are several options out there for forced entry protection on glass. They are not all created equal. So if you have questions about that, then you guys can reach out to us through the website, and we kind of guide people through that process because, Matt, you got to take a shot at it too, and there are different levels for that. The big one I would say, and obviously I'm a little one-sided here, but is training the people that are in the school. At the end of the day, you can have all the physical security in the world, but it's a fact that over 80% of school attacks are current or former staff or student, most of those being student. They're going to know how to get into your building. Even if it's the most secure place on the planet, if they went to school there, they're going to know how to get in. So it all goes back to, do the people on the inside of the building know what to do if the worst day happens? I've mentioned before, the teachers at Covenant had to perform for 16 minutes. Parkland, Florida, that shooting lasted 7. So, again, the people in the building knowing what to do, that's pretty huge. We did reach out to Metro schools trying to, get a relationship going there because we had several Metro schools reach out to book us for training post-Covenant. They apparently have since been told that they did not want them to bring in outside training. So I went a step further and actually invited their head of school security to attend one of our training sessions just to get familiar with our program and what we're doing. And that person did attend the training for about 20 minutes and left. I've kind of reached out as much as I can with trying to do something with Metro, and they're just not interested right now.
And I know that you've been busy, and, I'm always torn. I want people to get the best possible training in the world. And when I talk about the company Defense Systems, I often say, you've heard me say it, that, the odds of you experiencing something like this are minuscule. But every person that goes through a workplace violence situation or mass casualty situation, they, invariably you find the person that say, I can't believe that happened here, right? So nobody believes that it's going to happen where they work or where they go to church or where they go, grocery shop. But hope is not a plan. You gotta make sure that you're trained and understand level of training. Do you feel like, based on the communication you're having with the community, and I know it's been robust specifically because of Covenant, do you feel like there's maximum awareness going on right now in our businesses and in our churches and in our schools?
Yeah, it's at a higher level than I've seen it before. Just, I think largely in part due to covenant. A lot of the people have had this conversation going for a few years, like some clients we're dealing with right now, and it was stuff like the Covenant School shooting that, finally got them over the edge to say, okay, there's something here we can do for our people besides just hope it doesn't happen here. So, as such, we're, as we've talked about it off the air before, extremely busy trying to figure out our scaling options because we don't want to scale too fast and lose control of our deliverable. I think, Matt, you would agree with that, considering you've been through the training. So we're trying to figure all that out. But we also don't want to tell people no because people are scared to death. We do have at least one metro school that is still wanting to engage with us regardless. And again, I hate that we're even in that situation because as of yet, the metro schools faculty and staff have not had any training around this topic. So I'll be interested to see what they finally roll out. But to date, nothing yet.
Well, it seems inexplicable to me, and I understand that it's not a perfect world. It does not catch 100% of potential bad guys to have someone trained and on scene. But, I mean, we know even from the information that has leaked out, and I trust this information that has leaked regarding some of the intentions of the shooter at Covenant, that she targeted another shooting area in town, and you tell me if I'm saying anything wrong here, Brink, based on your sources and your information, but that apparently she shut that down because of the security presence involved there. Is that not right?
That's part of it, yeah. It's not all of it, but that is part of the thought process. And
I just use it as an example of how a security presence can prevent, even the moving forward with a heinous, evil act like this.
Well, that's what I was going to say. A better example of that is the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. That shooter, his original target was Disney World, and that's where he was on his way to. And he walked up, as he approached the gates, he saw a bunch of armed officers sitting there, and he turned around and went back to his car and went and hit the nightclub instead. So, yeah, for sure, it can work. It doesn't always, but it's certainly better than not having anyone there to shoot back. I mean, I can tell you somebody shooting back on March 27th would have made a massive difference for the people at Covenant. But, there was nobody in that instance with the ability to shoot back. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but, it's like same with crowded environments like gymnasiums and cafeterias. You have to have somebody there that can stand in the face of evil and deal with it.
Well, if you want to know how effective shooting back can be, I recall I was talking about this incident the other day. I forget where it was, the mall, you'll remember, where the young man who had some gun training, I think he fired from like 30 yards with his pistol.
Yeah. I don't remember the mall, but yeah.
And
that made a massive difference.
There's no question. And so, the political left, and sadly this has become a politicized issue, they want to ingrain in the minds of our youngsters that guns in any situation are always bad. I think that's psychologically what they're trying to ingrain in the minds of young people and just Americans generally. And very well through your training with the Metro Nashville Police Department that a good guy with a gun is an important component to stopping a bad guy with a gun.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason cops carry guns. There's a reason, members of the military carry guns. It's, you have to have the ability to put back on them what they're trying to dish out. And, if you don't, then you don't have anybody safe. You just have victims, right? Countless victims.
Mason's freaking out on me now because I got to take a quick time out. But can I ask you one other question on the other side? Can we continue this for a couple more minutes? All right, Brink Fiddler's with us. He's with Defense Systems, and I want to talk to him about another aspect of that because I'm having a lot of mayoral candidates filter through the show, and I'm going to ask Brink when we come back if one of these mayoral candidates called him and said, "Hey, what can we do about crime in our city?" What he would tell them. It's 2:24 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The White House still trying to figure out where the U.S. soldier is in North Korea, crime in Tennessee, and Amazon and the Justice Department agreed to a multi-million-dollar settlement. That and more, 2:30, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. It is 2:27 right now, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A couple of additional moments with Brink Fiddler of Defense Systems. Find out more about Defense Systems at defensesystems.com. It's just that easy, defensesystems.com. You can email Brink via that website and get more information about what he does for the public. If you own or are a decision maker at a home, rather a place of business, a school, a church, anywhere outside of the home where people gather, then you need Defense Systems in your life. Brink, I'm talking to a lot of mayoral candidates. I had Freddie O'Connell on here. I had Alice Rowley on here. I've had others. And we talk about crime quite a bit. And they all have their own sense of ideas about what they would do and what they wouldn't do. If one of them called you up and said, Brink, I want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you. I want your thoughts based on your almost 2 decades experience with the Metro Nashville Police Department, based on your extensive experience as the owner of Defense Systems. What can I do to make our city safer? I mean, I know that we need more police, and maybe that's a part of your answer. What would you say to them?
That's a part of it. The biggest part is the policies of the current district attorney's office. It was a priority for that office to prosecute a police officer for shooting a man with a gun in his hand, which obviously that sent a massive message to the entire department, right, about how they feel about that kind of stuff. It caused several people to hesitate in several shootings. And it also, if the policies are low bond and we're just, we're plea bargaining people down, there's no fear for the criminals, right? Like they know under the current office situation that there's nothing that's really going to happen to them. Then if the police department does all they can do and lock them up, well, and they just turn around and let them right back out, I mean, the police department's hands are tied. And the police department probably wants to stay away from that topic to just try and go along to get along, but that's the reality. I mean, period. That's what's happening. I know that's what's happening because I still talk to a lot of the officers. And, if they don't have a prosecutor's office that is going to back them and actually hammer these criminals, then their hands are tied. I mean, so until the policies of that office change, I think we're going to be in the same boat we're in now.
Well, and hopefully the State General Assembly can provide the city of Nashville a little bit of relief in terms of doing something about the lax district attorney's office. I know that there's a lot of frustration that goes on, even with some members of the Metro Council and within the mayor's office. And certainly I know that there's a lot of frustration amongst the Metro Nashville police officers because there's so little that they can do. All they can do is catch them and get them in jail. And sadly, it's up to the DA to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. And if they're not doing that, then that has to impact morale negatively.
Well, and if you're worried about getting prosecuted for doing your job, I mean, that's pretty significant too, right? Like, what police officer wants to go out and be proactive and kick in doors and chase bad guys if, there's a chance you're going to get prosecuted because somebody doesn't agree with what you did, even though it was perfectly lawful? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just causing more of a problem too. So it's really a double-edged sword, and I know that's probably not the answer people want to hear, and I'm sorry, but that's the truth. I mean, that's the reality we're living in right now.
That's why we called you, Brink. You'll deliver the truth, even if it seems to be bad news to the ears of the listening audience. Be safe as you travel, and we'll talk to you again very soon, my friend.
All right, cool. Thanks, Matt.
Take care. There's Brink Fiddler. DefenseSystems.com is the website. You're invited to go there. It's news time, 2:31 on Super Talk.
.231, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, weather aware here in the mid-state. Severe thunderstorm warning until 2:45 in Coffee, Van Buren, Warren, and Grundy counties. Hails, 60-mile-an-hour winds tracked in those storms. Multiple downed trees and power lines in Robertson County. Same thing over there in Sumner County. And the brunt of the severity of these storms has passed the Nashville area. And looking at power outages here, over 48,000 people without power in Tennessee right now. Full weather forecast coming up in just a couple of minutes. Some breaking news here. The American Chemistry Council, a trade group representing a large swath of the United States chemical industry, filed a legal lawsuit against the Biden administration today over recent actions targeting use of the chemical formaldehyde. And that is breaking news from Fox. And sticking in the White House today, they say they're continuing to work on getting information about the American soldier who crossed into North Korea. Here's White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Olivia Dalton speaking with reporters on board Air Force One today on the way to Philadelphia.
We've now reached out through multiple channels to the KPA to try to ascertain that information and get closer to an answer. We're still looking for more information about what has exactly occurred here.
And Dalton said the White House remains in close contact with the DoD, the Department of State, the UN, Swedish partners, and our South Korean partners as well. Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 says a father is now under arrest after his toddler was found naked and alone by a pool at the Highland Apartments. 22-year-old Mason Fowler had already been cited for child endangerment, and incidents had been reported at this complex 4 different times. Police said the apartment was dirty and they had a fly infestation along with used cigarettes thrown into a pot of water. Fowler was arrested and booked into Metro Jail. And Amazon and the Justice Department agreed to a multi-million-dollar settlement in a case alleging violations of a children's privacy law. Here's Dave Packer.
Amazon agreeing to pay a $25 million civil penalty as part of a settlement over alleged violations of the Children's Online Privacy Act, or COPPA. The Federal Trade Commission had alleged that Amazon marketed products aimed at children under 13 on its Alexa app, then saved those recordings of the children's voices longer than needed in violation of COPPA. The FTC also said the recordings and geolocation were not in some cases deleted, even when the user requested it be. Amazon says while it disagrees with the FTC's claims, it will remove child profiles that have been inactive for more than 18 months unless a parent or guardian chooses to keep them.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Friends, Tennessee Men's Clinic is men-centric healthcare that relies on modern medical technology to examine you, to get some blood work done, to see what's going on inside and out, and to figure out a prescription for success when it comes to your energy levels. Maybe you fear that it's just over for you when it comes to the energy that you used to have. If that's the case, fear not. Tennessee Men's Clinic can assist you. Let them come in. If you're feeling sluggish, run down, or low down, allow them to go through the process with you. Get a little blood work. Check out some of those numbers. They need to know those numbers that are inside of you. And I know you avoid them because you don't care about the BP or the cholesterol or any of that. Well, they care about all of those numbers. And in combination, they can offer a recipe for success to get you back to the energy level that you wanted to be, to get that vim and vitality back. Tennessee Men's Clinic has been doing it for a long time, and they want to do it for you now. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for more information, or give them a call and schedule an appointment today. 2 locations to serve you. One is in Midtown, the other in Cool Springs in Franklin. So those 2 locations available for you at one number, 615-208-9090, 208-9090. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is coming up in just a couple of short weeks. Have you gotten those tickets? Time is running out. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is the party of the season, the party of the summer, and I want you to be there. I want you to join me there. I invite you to go get 3-day passes or get single-day tickets to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. There's lots of racing. I mean, obviously, you're going to see some of the best open-wheel race car drivers in the world racing through the streets of Nashville, but you'll also see the high-flying stadium super trucks, Saturday night racing, a family fun zone for the kids. The track goes through downtown Nashville, so you experience everything that Nashville has to offer, food and drink and restaurants and the hottest honky-tonks and a lot of race car driving. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is something for everybody. Don't miss the party of the year. Grab your tickets. Get amped at MusicCityGP.com. Again, MusicCityGP.com. Come on! CMT wants to cancel Merle, too. Uh-huh. What do you say about that, Merle? Well, yeah, freedom of speech. I get you. Uh-oh. Ultra-violence from Merle Haggard. You can't respond, Merle. He's telling them to get out. Oh, a warning. Ooh. That's racist adjacent, Merle. Just because it's my show, I'm going to listen to the second verse because I want to, okay? Here we go. 1970, by the way. Squirrely. When I think of squirrely guys, I think of Dan Mandis. Why is that?
Keeps avoiding conflict with you.
That's true. No pickleball. Uh-huh. Communism, socialism. Yikes. Oh, he's got backup singers now. I mean, it's the same song. I mean, I guess Aldean's got a little more edge to it, but man, you're walking on the fighting side of me. I guess somebody would be protesting. Oh, key change.
I was about to say.
Little key change. Love it. Leave it. 53 years ago, this song came out.
Wow, is it really been that long?
Yeah, 1970. Vietnam War. I mean, obviously, it was in the midst of the Vietnam War, and there was thank you, Merle. God bless you. One of my favorites, Merle Haggard, walking on the fighting side of me. So is that not... yeah, there were a lot of people protesting the Vietnam War, and Merle Haggard said, look, you got a right to your own point of view, but now you start dragging our country through the mud, and you're walking on the fighting side of me, which is perfectly permissible in 1970. Apparently, it's not permissible to say that if you come into my city and start burning things to the ground and act like fools, and lawless fools at that, there's going to be a response. Fascinating, the response that Jason Aldean's song has gotten from the left. The Tennessean has presented a column. Says, I grew up in small-town Tennessee. Jason Aldean's song does not represent my values. Well, Jason Aldean's song never pretended to represent your values, LeBron Hill, who wrote this article. He says, on July 14th, country music artist Jason Aldean released a music video for his latest single, Try That in a Small Town. Single's been out since March, I think. And he goes on to talk about the controversy, and then he misrepresents the song a pretty good bit. And He says the lyrics in the song suggest that protests and activism only create senseless violence. No. He's directly reflecting on the senseless violence that went on in our cities in the summer of 2020. Mr. Hill, we lived through it. We saw the senseless violence that existed. He then goes on to say, it also creates an unnecessary divide between medium to large cities and small towns. Dude, if you don't think that divide was already there, he's not creating anything. He's pointing it out. That people who live in New York City or people who live in Chicago or even in Nashville don't think like people who live in small towns. And that's okay. That diversity is okay. And pointing it out should be okay. Last I checked, it was. It was. And so then Mr. Hill goes on to say, I was born and raised in Tullahoma, Tennessee. Population 20,665. A town that I've been to on numerous occasions. Beautiful little small town. I take pride in the memories I have of fishing at ponds in Decherd. I don't know about the pronunciation there. And going out late night bonfires on a warm summer night. Yet in his music video, there's nothing captured about the essence of a small town, yet a narrative that says every person from towns like Tullahoma and Decherd despises protesting. It's nothing about protest. It's about lawless destruction of property, sir. And then he goes on to talk about the town of Pulaski, the cradle of the Ku Klux Klan, community wrestling with its white supremacist past for years. For a second, if you could, take away the left or right, liberal or conservative, and ponder this question. And this is where I wanted to get to. Is the only way to push our values to fearmonger about the other side? The right to protest has and always will be the expression of the unheard. And so when a person who holds power attacks that expression, it furthers that silence. What? So Mr. Hill is under the misunderstanding, it seems to me, in reading his op-ed piece or his article that was presented in the Tennessean. I think it was in the Tennessean. Now I'm looking at, and it seems that it was in the Columbia Daily Herald, but I think these are two peas of the same pot. I think they're owned by the same organization. So he's asking us to do this, to take away the right and left, liberal or conservative, is the only way to push our values to fearmonger about the other side. Well, no. The obvious answer is no. And thank you for the pronunciation guide from Grant and from 2862 and from others like 1087. It's Decherd. I think I'm doing that right. Nick says Decherd, Tennessee. Generalizing that all small towns belie the same aggressively conservative views as you is naive and further adds to our country's divide. He said the right to protest has and always will be the expression of the unheard. So no one is suggesting that people do not have the right to protest. But what happened in the summer, you keep trying to convince in your article, Mr. Hill, that we don't remember correctly the activities of what went down in major United States cities under the umbrella of protest. They burned private businesses to the ground, sir. They destroyed entire police precincts, sir. They destroyed public property and private alike. They created autonomous zones that they said acted independently of the United States of America. They attempted to burn down the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon. They beat up innocent people. They tried to kill Kyle Rittenhouse for having the audacity to defend a friend of his property and then prosecuted him for defending himself. In small-town America, we believe in law and order. Do you? You're from a small town. Do you believe that protests should be peaceful and lawful, sir? Or do you believe that in the midst of protest and in the spirit, Mr. Hill, of the emotional protest that went on that we should simply expect and concede lawless behavior or lawless activity. He then finishes up, this type of lopsided propaganda is what stops country music from becoming a genre for everyone, no matter what you believe. Oh, I'm sorry. Is country music is not a genre for everyone? That was his assumption. But ultimately, it's up to us, the music listeners, to tell artists that we are better than propaganda and we deserve more. Well, I think we deserve more from the Tennessean in terms of their opinion writers. But Mr. Hill, you're welcome to come on the show and we can we can have a robust discussion about what you believe small towns are. I grew up in a small town too. Thomson, Georgia, Thomson. No P in Thompson, we used to like to say. Population, oh gosh, 10,000. Tiny place. And I loved everybody. Black, white, brown. But we also believed in law and order. We believed in the rule of law. We believe if you violate the laws, you have to be punished. And we believed in peaceful protest. And I saw it. Saw it on the grounds of the courthouse. That protest did not involve the burning of buildings to the ground or unlawfully occupying territory that was not yours or attempting some sort of mutiny or coup on the floor of the Tennessee General Assembly like our friend Justin Jones attempted, or covering up sexual assaults like Justin Jones is accused of covering up during his occupation of the Tennessee State Capitol in 2020. Oh, yeah, I know about it. One of the reasons that Justin will not come on this show is because I plan on asking him about it when I have the opportunity. Why did you cover up a sexual assault? What was so important for you to do that? You've been credibly accused. What say you, sir? So the underlying assumption through all of these assaults is that if I decide that we're going to announce, we stand up for our rights and we stand up for what we believe in, that is somehow frowned upon because it's a part of the movement of the political right. In the meantime, it is not without notice, and I've not talked about it on the show today, that Joe Biden continues to be under a tremendous amount of pressure from the House Oversight Committee. Now, Senator Chuck Grassley, just today, has released a document revealing that a reliable FBI source has informed the Bureau of a bribery scheme involving the entirety of the Biden family. According to an unidentified informant, the founder of Burisma recounted being pressured by then Vice President Joe Biden to put Hunter Biden on the Ukrainian Energy Board and for $10 million in bribes, $5 million to Joe Biden, $5 million to Hunter Biden, in order to use Joe Biden's political influence to force the firing of a Ukrainian prosecutor who was investigating Burisma. The prosecutor, a man that we now know his name as Viktor Shokin, was fired by the Ukrainian government a few months after Joe Biden demanded it. He threatened that the Obama administration would withhold $1 billion in congressionally approved U.S. funding unless Kyiv fired Shokin. He bragged about it on video in 2018. The bribery information was provided to the FBI in a series of meetings with the informant beginning in 2017. They've known about this. Here's the sad reality on this story. It is a scandal that goes so deep. It is the biggest political scandal in American history. A vice president bribed foreign nationals in order to enrich his family, including his son and his brother. And nobody in the media will touch it because he's on the right. He's on their side. He's on their side. And sadly, a lot of you don't want to talk about it because you, like me, feel like nothing will be done. It is as frustrating as anything for me to discuss this issue because I believe the Biden family will skate. I believe that's how far the deep state will go to protect them. I don't want it to be so, but I believe it is. 252 on Super Talk.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call. Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
That winds it down for us. Our allotment of time is sadly over, but never you fear. The Drive with Brian Wilson begins in earnest in mere moments after McMurray's newscast at the top of the hour. Now, that said, tomorrow, Brian out, Murphy in. I'll be here 3 until 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WT, and Des Dickerson in for me. You can come and join me. I'll be at broadcasting from McGill's world-famous Glock store right on Air Lane Drive off of Elm Hill Pike. Until tomorrow, Brian Wilson up next. See you, folks.